CBS4.com.
Welcome back. We continue our look at the men who are running for the Democratic nomination for the U.S. Senate. Jeff Greene is a Palm Beach developer who entered the race last month. Recently, CBS 4 political reporter Michael Williams sat down with Greene.
A lot of people are saying Jeff Greene, beyond his $1 billion as a real estate investor, who is he? Tell us who you are.
Michael, I can tell you who I am. I was raised in Massachusetts, middle-class family. My dad lost his livelihood in the textile industry when I was a kid. My parents moved to Florida, struggled, worked hard all my life. Worked when I was a child, worked my way through Johns Hopkins University, Harvard Business School, lived the American dream. And you know what? I have a 7-month-old son at home, and I want to preserve that American dream for my son, for every child here in Florida.
Talk a little more specifically as to why you decided to be a late entrant in the race against Kendrick Meek for the Democratic U.S. Senate nomination.
Well, Michael, you know that in Washington, these politicians have failed us. People in Florida share my anger and frustration. We're all fed up with what's going on in Washington. This is a clear choice between 3 career politicians, Marco Rubio, Kendrick Meek, Charlie Crist, who have failed to get results for us, and an outsider, me, Jeff Greene, who have been successful, created jobs, and will go to Washington and put Florida first.
How are you going to be any different, though? What specifically are you going to do differently? Why are you a better candidate than Kendrick Meek?
Well, this is a clear choice between 2 things: results. I've had results in my life, and failure. Kendrick Meek has failed us. Unemployment rate came out today at 12.3% in Florida, 9.9% nationally. Kendrick Meek has been in Congress for 7 years. Since he's been there, we've lost 680,000 jobs just in Florida. That to me is failure. That doesn't deserve to be rewarded with a trip to with a ticket to the United States Senate.
What are you going to do in Washington?
Well, I come from the world of business. I've succeeded. As I said to you, I've lived the American dream. I've created jobs all my life, thousands and thousands of jobs. I understand what it is to be an employer. I know what kinds of incentives employers need to create jobs. I'm going to go to Washington as an outsider. I'm not going to be in the pockets of special interests.
But that sounds like campaign sloganeering, and your opponents come at you very harshly to begin with. Maurice Ferre, also running for United States Senate, we might add, as a Democrat, the former Miami mayor, says it's appalling, and I quote, that Jeff Greene made his money, much of his fortune, off the misfortune of hardworking Floridians. More insulting that he thinks he can use, quoting here, his loot to buy their votes. Blasting you, they say, for trying to finance your campaign on the back of Floridians. Also from Kendrick Meek campaign. In reality, Jeff Greene pioneered trading uncovered credit default swaps and started an arms race between big banks that ultimately led to a collapse, a real estate collapse that's been catastrophic for this country. Their argument that you made your multi-millions off the backs of Floridians by betting against the real estate market. How do you respond to those harsh criticisms?
You know, it's desperate career politicians trying to go from office to office to office. I worked for every penny I earned. No one gave me anything. When I first came to Florida with my parents in 1970, I was a busboy and a waiter at the Breakers Hotel. I worked my way through Johns Hopkins University. I worked my way through Harvard Business School.
Were Floridians harmed by your actions, though, essentially betting against the real estate market that ultimately collapsed?
Not a single Floridian lost 1 penny as a result of the trades I made. I want to reiterate, not a single Floridian lost a penny.
Let's talk specifics to policy. We talk about a debt crisis in Washington. Are you willing to A, raise taxes, B, cut entitlement spending in terms of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, or talk about more means testing in order to get this debt, this huge federal national debt, under control?
At this point, the answer to those questions are no,
no new taxes,
no, and no. We're in a situation. We have 24 million Americans unemployed or underemployed in this country. We're in an unemployment crisis here. 12.3% unemployed, another 4 or 5% minimum who are underemployed right here in Florida. This is not the time to be raising taxes.
If you're not willing to raise taxes and you're not willing to cut entitlement spending or do more means testing for entitlement spending, how are you different than any other politician or potential politician who doesn't want to tackle those tough topics head on and deal with this nation's burgeoning federal debt crisis?
Michael, there are many ways to solve the debt crisis, but it's not raising taxes when you're in the midst of a very deep recession.
And you won't means test Social Security?
At this point, Social Security is not a political football. I can tell you this. I'm not in favor of raising the age for Social Security entitlements. I think the Social Security program, as it's set, I've studied the Social Security program. The Social Security program is fine for the next 30 to 40 years. We will have to take a look at it. We'll have to make some hard choices. At this point, we need to put Americans back to work. If those 24 million people are working again, they'll be paying money into Social Security, and that'll help solve the Social Security problems. Unemployed workers do not help solve Social Security problems.
Bottom line, yes or no, the health care bill that is now law, had you been a Democratic United States Senator, would you have voted for the health care reform bill this spring?
Yes, I would have voted for it, but it would have been a different bill because we're not going to take special interest money, so I won't be in the pockets of the drug companies. There wouldn't have been the backroom deals with Louisiana, Nebraska, all this other kind of stuff.
Let's close with one more specific. Let's say you were to win the United States Senate seat as a Democrat. What's the biggest specific piece of legislation or the biggest push you'd make in the first 3 to 6 months?
I can tell you that I have 3 priorities: jobs, jobs, and jobs. We will create incentives for small businesses to create jobs right here in Florida. We will create green energy jobs right here in Florida. We will create incentives for research and development and innovation. Get Americans and get Floridians working again. That's what we're going to do.
Jeff Greene, Democratic candidate for United States Senate in Florida. We have to also close with one question. You did run once as a Republican briefly in California. Why the Republican-Democratic switch?
It wasn't a Republican-Democratic switch. I've been a Democrat all my life. I was raised in Massachusetts. My parents were Democrats. My grandparents were Democrats.
What happened that year in California?
1 year of my life, I was not a Democrat. 1 year of my life, I was a Republican. But the other 54 years, I've been a Democrat. I was an early supporter of the president at the inauguration, at the victory party right here in Miami.
How much will you spend on this campaign of your own wealth?
Michael, I will spend whatever it takes to be competitive. But the career politicians, professional politicians, and the special interest money they're taking. But I'll tell you this, I won't take 1 penny of special interest money, not in the primary, the general election, or after I'm elected, not a penny.
That was Jeff Greene with Michael Williams.